Should tell him to go f himself for his 200K.
Forget Tony's murders? This is the coldest thing he ever did, and it destroyed the last decent man in Jersey. There is a small, nearly throwaway moment in the Sopranos episode Chasing It, a scene so quiet and unassuming that it slips past on first watch, only to fester later. Bobby Bacalieri, once the embodiment of decency within a moral sewer, suggests to Tony Soprano that he simply skip out on a debt to Hesh Rabkin. Just don't pay him. What's he gonna do about it? The suggestion lands with the kind of dull horror that comes when the last good thing rots from the inside out. This was Bobby, remember?
Seriously, it levels the playing field. The AR-10?
The same man who took up bow hunting not for sport, but because he wanted to fight fair with the deer. The same man who lectured his boss about following the rules of Monopoly. In that one board game squabble, he'd been willing to challenge the reigning king of sociopathy because, heaven forbid, Tony had stolen from the bank in front of his own family. Bobby believed in rules. Not morality, perhaps, but rules. Codes. Decency. Fairness in the corrupted microcosm of their world. By the time Chasing It aired, that man was gone. The transformation is so absolute that Tony, by then in his full unrepentant villain phase, has to remind Bobby that stiffing Hesh would look bad for a boss. Imagine Tony Soprano, human landfill of ethics, lecturing someone else about optics. That Bobby even needed the reminder is the show's cruelest joke. What Tony took from Bobby when he forced him to commit his first murder is not subtle. It's his soul, plain and simple.
Now come to think of it, you never popped your cherry in that regard. Yeah, your old man was the fucking Terminator.
Before the hit, Bobby was a soldier in the old sense. Dutiful, loyal, and naive enough to believe that following orders meant maintaining honor. He was complicit, yes, but not corrupted. He lived in the moral gray fog that the Sopranos painted so masterfully. The man who could rough up a careless contractor whose negligence endangered his family, and then go home to tuck in his children. He was capable of violence without delighting in it, capable of obedience without malice. Then came the hit. Tony dangled it as both punishment and initiation. Revenge for being bested in a drunken fight, and a test of Bobby's loyalty.
You can't hide behind this brother-in-law shit forever.
It was a rite of passage, disguised as degradation. In doing it, Bobby crossed the invisible line separating mobster who does mobster things from mobster who becomes the thing itself. From that point, every moral nerve in Bobby's body calcified. His demeanor changed, subtly at first, then unmistakably. The gentle giant became cold, pragmatic, transactional. The suggestion to cheat Hesh isn't a casual aside, it's a diagnostic. The infection has taken hold. The man who once sought to level the playing field with a deer now advocates dishonor as business strategy. Of course, this is where the apologists crawl out. They insist Bobby was never a good man, merely a slower, fatter version of the others, that Tony had every right to involve him in the family's blood work, that morality is a luxury in the Mezzogiorno of Essex County. Spare us. There's a difference between a man complicit in evil and one eager for it. Bobby's early sins, threatening a union rep, enforcing the family's business, were carried out within a framework of mob honor. To him, it was a job with ugly necessities. But stiffing a friend? Exploiting weakness simply because you can? That's Tony Soprano territory. That's rot masquerading as power. What's brilliant and devastating is how the show lets this corruption unfold without melodrama. Tony doesn't destroy Bobby in one violent blow. He erodes him by degrees. Bobby's soul doesn't combust. It decomposes.
Medication for
There's some way we could get you to lower your price.
The show even gifts him a moment of almost comic irony. The level playing field hunter reduced to a man who kills for a discount on expired pharmaceuticals. The tragedy of Bobby Bacalieri is that he was the only man in Tony's orbit who might have remained human had he been left alone. His life before the hit was a fragile balancing act between brutality and innocence.
I got stuff for the party, toys, for me and Junior.
He loved his wife, doted on his children, kept no mistress, and somehow managed to live in the filth without stinking entirely of it. His goodness was relative, yes, but in The Sopranos, relativity is the only kind that exists. And then Tony took it away. The beauty of The Sopranos lies in how it equates corruption with contagion. No one in Tony's world escapes untainted. Christopher tries to write his way out. Silvio hides behind his facades. Paulie laughs through the decay. But Bobby? Bobby represented the possibility that a man could live by the rules, however twisted those rules were. When that possibility dies, something larger dies with it. The illusion that the mob still has a code. The defenders who insist he was never good are missing the point. The show doesn't ask whether Bobby was a saint. It asks how long decency can survive in proximity to power. It's not about absolution. It's about corrosion.
You tell him to go fuck himself for his $200K.
Bobby's tragedy isn't that he became a killer. It's that he learned to rationalize it. Even his supposed intelligence arc mirrors this decay.
It's like an ad for a fucking weight loss center.
Early on, Bobby is mocked as slow, even dim-witted. But his simplicity was a kind of armor. He wasn't clever enough to scheme, which meant he wasn't cruel enough to enjoy scheming.
I'm gonna move Bobby up.
As he rose through the ranks, his competence sharpened, but so did his cynicism. The same man who once blushed at violence learns to rationalize cheating a friend. That's what growth looks like in Tony Soprano's America. The irony is delicious. The man mocked for being soft becomes hard, and in doing so, loses everything that made him valuable.
Plus Silvio Dante, and we think Bobby Buckley.
He wanted to be respected, and Tony, in his infinite genius for destruction, granted him that wish, by making him indistinguishable from the rest.
You never see a blue comet in that condition.
It's fitting that Bobby's end comes not in a blaze of heroism, but in a toy store, surrounded by model trains, the sentimental artifacts of the man he used to be. It's the cruelest mercy the show offers. He dies a mobster's death, but in a child's world, a miniature paradise of order and innocence he could never truly live in. As for Hesh and his money, the debate over who owed what and who wanted a vig is almost comically beside the point. The loan subplot isn't about cash, it's about the death of reciprocity. Tony's refusal to pay and Bobby's flippant endorsement of that refusal reveal how far the moral rot has spread. In their world, debt isn't financial, it's spiritual, and no one pays it back. The argument that Hesh deserved it because he'd profited off others for years is exactly the sort of moral gymnastics that The Sopranos dissects with surgical precision. It's the logic of gangsters and viewers alike. Everyone's dirty, so no one's guilty. But there was a time when Bobby Baccalieri understood the difference between business and betrayal. By chasing it, he's forgotten it entirely. So yes, Bobby was never a good man. He was a mobster, a criminal, a hypocrite in tracksuits. But within that cesspool, he was the last man still pretending that fairness mattered. When he tells Tony to skip the payment, the pretense finally dies. It's the quietest tragedy of the series. Not a gunshot, not a betrayal, but a suggestion. A single sentence that says, "Why bother doing what's right?" Delivered by the one man who once thought you should. By the end, Bobby Baccalieri isn't a fallen hero. He's something worse. Proof that decency, in Tony Soprano's world, isn't defeated by violence. It's defeated by influence. And that, as they say in Jersey, is business. Every rule breaks. Every code rots. Every day, we break it down. Subscribe.